Alright, good morning, and I hope that you are all doing well. Unless you're watching this at any other time other than the morning. That's not to say that I don't hope that you're doing well, it's just because the good morning one. Okay, anyway, today we're working on the winch cradle. As you can see here, I brought my old winch up to Sam's place. This one doesn't work anymore, but I thought I could use it as a bit of a template. I want to try and relocate the winch up, out of the way, to get more ground clearance, and you can see here that it's not very, it's a bit square at the bottom, and it looks gross. But if I was to move this winch up... oh my god! But if I was to move the winch up, I would need to do a little bit of modifications to the inner workings of my car. What modifications, you might be wondering? Well, because this bar sits so close to the car, I need to have the winch inset a little bit. And to do that, I need to remove the aircon condenser, or at least the radiator for that. I don't know how the aircon works. But look at that, there's a perfect hole for a winch to sit in there. It's almost as if Toyota knew what my plans were. I decided to start the car and made sure it still worked because knowing me, if I've touched it, it'll probably break. So expecting the car to explode, I turned the key. Ah, well, she starts and runs just fine, and, well, what more could you ask for? Part of me wants to get a new grill because this one is held in by zip ties and it has been for almost 2 years now, but that's almost the point of having one of these cars. After using 7 zip ties to put my car back together, I picked up the bull bar and mounted it up. With new and improved real estate behind the grill, I'm able to unbolt the winch cradle and move it up. But I need to bolt the bar to the chassis first, as the winch cradle is actually a vital piece of keeping the bar straight. Luckily right now the bar is actually light enough for me to mount it and unmount it by myself, which is a plus. And now with the bar mounted, I can unbolt the winch cradle and move it up and... Oh. Okay, so it's still not the prettiest looking bar, but just hold tight, hang with me. That's the point of this video. And the first step in doing that is moving the winch cradle up, and I was using this child's sledgehammer to bash the cradle in and sort of bow the piece of metal back out. Now, I realized I wasn't making enough noise down here and I wanted to annoy people more, so I decided to pack up and move up to the shed. I haphazardly threw everything on the tray and plugged the negative terminal back onto the battery. I made my way up to the concrete slab and parked myself next to the Mustang, where I continued... I smashed this piece of metal so far up that it wouldn't move any further, and I didn't think I'd need to weld it at all. So I slid the winch into place and made sure I was happy with the fitment before I welded it into place. The sun has risen on a new day at the B&B headquarters, and today I'm gonna actually work on cleaning up the bar, taking off this rust and completely welding it all together. But doing this will be no easy feat, however. I fear I'll suffer major ray burn, resulting in blistering skin and metal fume fever caused by the exposure to iron oxide fumes when grinding back the rust. Wait, metal fume fever? That sounds like something straight out of a science fiction novel. But no, that is a real thing. Here, let me look it up for you. Metal fume fever, also known as the brass shakes, the zinc shakes, the galvi flu, galvo poisoning, metal dust fever, welding shivers, is an illness primarily caused by exposure to chemicals such as zinc oxide, aluminium oxide, magnesium oxide, gold, silver, platinum, chromium, stainless steel, nickel, arsenic, manganese, beryllium, cadmium, cobalt, lead, selenium, and zinc. Symptoms of metal fume fever are flu-like. They include fever, chills, headaches, fatigue, muscle aches, joint pain, lack of appetite, shortness of breath, pneumonia, chest pain, change in blood pressure, dizziness, a coughing, cuckold syndrome, and most alarmingly, you might get an itch in your throat. After hearing all of that, you might be quite surprised to see that I'm not wearing any protection whatsoever, other than safety glasses, because I've had metal in my eye 4 times that I've had to get removed. As you would have seen in that time lapse, I took the front end of this plate off and sort of made the approach angle a lot better. Oh great, this is my leg completely blocking the view of whatever I was cutting. That's better. Next up, I'm going to be taking off a bit of a corner on the winch cradle and using that to actually reinforce itself. You'll see how later. Next up, I took this weird disc that I found and slapped it on the grinder, and it took the rust off incredibly well. So I held my breath as to not get metal fume fever. I was able to grind for about 10 minutes and then I passed out, regaining consciousness 30 minutes later, and the bar was done. It was time to break out the welder and set the right voltage and amperage to weld up this tube completely. Good thing it's focused on my hand so that you can see the numbers. I then used these handed numbers to correctly adjust the welder. Perfect. Turning on the gas, I was ready to start welding, and I was excited because I like throwing sparks around the place. And wow, would you look at that? That actually doesn't look too bad. You can definitely see where the welding was, and I could have spent more time grinding it, but I honestly could not be bothered. Welding that top bend was just the beginning, the tip of the iceberg, the icing that wasn't on the cake yet because I hadn't actually finished mixing the packet. This was going to be the test of my welding skills. There were some huge gaps that I had to fill in with weld, and while you could say that I should have made the pieces fit better, well, I would have to agree with you. Well, it would appear that I managed to finish the welding, and I was, pretty impressed with myself. And while it might not look pretty up front, it serves its purpose, okay? I took some Hammertone spray paint and painted it all black. Gave it a good 3 layers so that it wouldn't get cold on these winter nights. You can probably see here that the bar is looking quite flimsy from the bottom, and that's because, well, it still is. The only thing connecting the actual bar to the plate is those little welds that I put on the flat plate there. And while I am painting it now, this will not be the final coat that I'll do because I'll eventually put more tubing and bracing on this bar to make sure that it is connected to the mount securely, unlike now. After giving it a solid stare, I mounted it back up to the car and called it good for the day. Ooh, and zooey mama does it look good. Black paint really just hides all imperfections in everything. It's great. No experienced welder worked on this, but pretty confident that the welds aren't going to be the weak point. And I also realized that I haven't actually taken the car for a bit of a drive. I haven't tested all the gears and the steering on an actual road. So now that everything's back together, we're going to go test that. Wow, look at it go. Everything seems to be working just... Oh yeah, I have to come back and get the camera. But from what I can tell, all the gears work and the steering works just fine. So I think that's a win. Not that this car is going to be ever going above 40 kilometers an hour ever again, I think. But hey, it's good to know that just before we finish this video, just take a look at these shots. Ooh, the sun was just setting and the sky was showing some beautiful colors. So the car looks better than it normally would. It doesn't look this good in real life. But with another few days successful work, I decided to park up the car and pack up to head home. It was getting cold and dark and late and scary. So I reversed it back up to its handbrake and called it a day. And called it a day. And, whoa, called it a day. And called it a day. What does that sound wrong? Anyway, I really hope that you guys have enjoyed this video and are enjoying the series altogether. It's definitely a bit of a slow one because of how slow it is, but thank you for sticking around and watching. So I hope to see you guys all in the next video. Goodbye.